Halifax is the capital city of the province of Nova Scotia, Canada, and it was at the center of the Titanic shipwreck search and recovery efforts. This is a city with an amazing maritime history that is reaching for an even brighter future. Let's explore. We're in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and I'm Paul Comfort. This is Transit Unplugged TV. Today, we're going to dive into the fascinating history and culture of this North Atlantic coast port city. And we'll look at their food. We're going to go on a search for a Donair, the best one in the city. And we're going to show you the public transit system, how to get around the city, which includes this fantastic ferry system. All on this episode of Transit Unplugged TV. So Katie, tell me something about Halifax.
Halifax, we are on the east coast of Canada in the province of Nova Scotia. We are very much a harbor city, but and we're actually also quite a big university city. We have almost 7 universities, so it's a very youthful, lively destination. We've got your harbor. It's actually quite a small city in the grand scheme of things, but it has big energy. So we are standing here in Grand Parade Square. Haligonians use it interchangeably, and I would say this is the center of Halifax in a way. It's been here since the inception of Halifax. Right up here, you have Halifax Citadel National Historic Site, which is basically a military fortress in the middle of Halifax. Then down here, you have the waterfront. You can see the harbor. Over here, we have the oldest building in Halifax, which is St. Paul's Anglican Church. And over here, we have City Hall, which is where the mayor would be. Christmas trees, lit up at Christmas, all that stuff. So the Halifax Explosion was a massive historical event that happened in Halifax back in 1917. So essentially what happened is 2 ships in the harbor came together and they crashed. One of these ships was filled with explosives and it caught on fire. So people, were looking at the ship, they were looking through the windows, and then all of a sudden it just exploded and it killed about, I want to say it's around 1,500 people instantly. Wow. Then it ended up being 2,000 people died and about 10,000 people got injured. This is back in 1917, that would be a huge part of your population. Yeah. It mostly decimated parts of the North End, which is about 2 kilometers from here, but the extent of that damage extended as far as Prince Edward Island, which is a province about 3 hours away from here, and you can see other relics far away.
Wanda, tell me more about the Halifax Explosion.
After the explosion, what compounded the difficulty was that we had an enormous blizzard here as well, a snowstorm, just a huge storm. And it was further compounded by the Spanish flu, soldiers coming back from overseas. And in my husband's family, his mom, his late mom now, lost both her parents as a consequence of that event.
The Maritime Museum of the Atlantic is a treasure trove of artifacts from the city's nautical history and is home to a permanent display of the largest collection of wooden Titanic artifacts in the world. When the Titanic sank in the North Atlantic Ocean the night of April 14, 1912, Halifax, only 700 nautical miles away, became the hub of search and rescue efforts. Hours after the Titanic sank, ship owner the White Star Line commissioned cable ships based in Halifax to recover the bodies of victims. 150 of the bodies were laid to rest in 3 cemeteries here in Halifax. This Fairview Lawn Cemetery contains 121 graves from the souls that were lost that night. The White Star Line paid for the lots and their perpetual care. Each plot is marked by a plain granite gravestone with the inscription, "Died April 15, 1912, and includes an identification number. During my trip to Halifax, I attended the Canadian Urban Transit Association Spring Summit. Part of the CUTA conference included technical tours of Halifax Transit, including this trip aboard one of their ferries to the Woodside Terminal. On board, we caught up with the captain and the City Director of Environment and Climate Change. Captain Mervin, great to meet you. We're on one of your ferries. You're the head of ferry operations for Halifax Transit, right?
That's right.
So tell us about your Halifax Transit's ferry operations.
We have 5 vessels in our fleet, and we also own and operate 3 marine terminals. one at Halifax behind us, and Alderney and Woodside.
Shannon, we're out here in the harbor of Halifax. The city of Halifax takes climate change very seriously. And that's your job, right?
That's my job.
Yeah, tell me about it. What are you all doing?
So we have a plan called HalifACT, Acting on Climate Together, and it has 46 actions across mitigation and adaptation. And the unique thing across the country really is that we are funding it. So our politicians, our mayor and council made a really brave move a few years ago now to introduce a climate action tax when we were doing our property tax, review for a budget year. And 3% of that increase actually was dedicated to go to fund all of the capital work of the climate plan over the next decade or so.
Dave Reage is the executive director of Halifax Transit.
Paul, time to go for supper. We're going to go to Dartmouth and go to the Canteen.
That sounds great. I got one question. How do I get there?
We're taking the ferry.
Dave, great to be in the wheelhouse, in the captain's chair. Love it.
Yes,
Feel like
you're the
captain.
captain.
Yeah. This is an amazing ferry. I mean, it's very modern and all, but you've got an ancient history of all these, right?
Absolutely. So, the Halifax Dartmouth ferry service actually dates back to 1752. Now, that ferry was a guy in a rowboat.
Yeah.
Right? So, we've come a long way.
Yeah, that's great.
Lots of evolutions over the years. At one point, they did carry cars as well as passengers, but with the opening of the harbor bridges, they became passenger only back in the 50s.
Just up the hill from the ferry terminal, we headed to the Canteen on Portland restaurant, where the owner, Doug, greeted us.
Hello, gentlemen. How you doing, Dave?
Hey.
Paul, welcome to the Canteen.
Yeah, we're hungry, so what do you recommend?
The seafood's always a natural choice, obviously, when you're on the east coast of Canada, so enjoy.
Thank you for having us out.
All right, here we have our snow crab dip. Definitely a fan favorite. Nova Scotia crab in there. House-made crackers as well to go with it. All right, this is our seafood chowder. This is probably the most popular item on our main list on our menu. We've got seared scallops in there, lots of lobster. It's creamy and but not too thick. It's delicious. All right, this is our pan-seared haddock. This is the pearl couscous, lots of fresh veggies, very summery. We've got some feta in there as well as our house-made salsa verde.
Dave, great to be here in Halifax.
Good to see you, Paul.
Tell us about your transit system.
So it's Halifax Transit. We're the transit provider for Halifax here in Nova Scotia. About 400 buses, 5 harbor ferries. The ferries are kind of one of the unique things that only us in Vancouver have. So everybody loves the ferry system. We carry about 110,000 trips per day. So pretty sizable system, and the biggest system in Atlantic Canada.
We took the bus to the Mill Cove Ferry project site, where these rocks sit on the location of the future ferry terminal that will serve their new electric ferries. Jean-Pierre, we're here in Halifax, and I've been told there's a dish, a food item that really represents Halifax. What's that called again?
That must be the Donair.
The Donair, yes. Well, now I'm on a mission. We got to go find the best Donair in Halifax. Let's try.
Let's go.
Let's go. So with my friends Jean-Pierre and Saba, we searched the seaside city for this official food of Halifax, a Donair. But will we find one? We just walked up the big hill on Argyle Street. We're here now, and the search begins for the best Donair. All right, I got one question. Do you guys have Donairs here?
We do not, unfortunately. Yeah.
Got to keep going up the street?
Yes, you do.
All right, thanks.
Perfect.
Do you guys have Donairs in here?
No, we don't.
All right, so I got to keep going up the street?
I believe so, yeah.
All right, thanks. So you guys have Donairs here?
Absolutely.
Yes, we finally found one. They serve it open, but to eat it right, you've got to roll it up. Jean-Pierre, I think we found it. I think we found the perfect Donair. It's really good.
What does it taste like?
It's got like a So it's got mostly beef and tomatoes and onions on a shell of a pita bread, but the sauce on top is what makes it. It's kind of sweet and spicy at the same time. Really distinctive, delicious. The Canadian Urban Transit Association, or CUTA, held their spring summit in Halifax with lots of events, training, and tours. We asked attendees what they love about the city. Robert, we're here at the CUTA conference in Halifax, and even though you're from a different city, Guelph, what do you love about Halifax?
Well, you know, Paul, it's my first time here, and I can't believe that it's Canada. It's totally different than anywhere I've been, and the boardwalk is phenomenal. The ferry boats and the boardwalk and all the uniqueness to the city is wonderful, and I'm having a great time.
Geneva, you work here at CUTA as a director of events and membership, and you chose Halifax for your spring summit this year. What do you love about Halifax?
So we love Halifax because of the ocean vibe, the Atlantic, the people, and we've seen it in past months that it has been the land for new immigrants. We just love how welcoming the city is.
It's the people. People first. They're inherently kind. It's a different laid-back lifestyle in Canada, and yeah, just great people, very welcoming, and I love that you can't go more than about 100 feet without a good meal or a good beer.
The first thing I noticed coming to Halifax was the smell of the seawater. Coming from Toronto, we don't get to experience that often. Halifax est une ville magnifique.
It's got a lot of big city stuff, a lot of big city activities, but with a real small town feel. And, you know, any place that has boats as part of their transit system, you have to love. Right?
At the Ragged Lake Transit Center, Norman Hendry showed us their 2 pilot battery electric buses, how they're being tested, and plans for expansion.
We've got the bus barn, and in the bus barn we're putting 9 pantograph and some plug-in chargers.
Okay.
And we're building an extension on the side which can take 40 electric buses, and they're all plug-in chargers. So because of our winter conditions on the Atlantic coast, you know, we get quite heavy snowfalls, we get the rain, we get the ice. So we try and keep all the buses inside. So this bus barn can take just over 200 buses. So these are our ABB. ABB is the manufacturer of the pantograph. So it's an inverted pantograph. You can see some of the rust spots on those joists.
Yeah.
That's because we've been welding to strengthen the joists to hold the weight of this pantograph. So this is our second bus. You may have seen the first bus, which is bus number 2000 with the wrap, which was specially designed as the graphics of capturing everything that's in Halifax. And this is the wraps that's going to be on the following 59 buses.
Okay, so you're doing 60 total?
60 total.
And how many do you have now?
2.
Just these 2, okay.
Just these 2.
And when will the next ones be coming in, would you say?
We're going to get all our buses, all 60, by the end of October.
Oh, great.
So
wow.
We've got a good schedule with Nova Bus. They've been helping and working through that to get us our buses in.
Gotcha.
So part of the testing we're doing, so we can really get a better understanding of what the bus can and what it can't do. Our bus 2000, which is that one up there, we've got roughly 2.5 ton of sand on board in sandbags, which simulates the 68 kilograms or 150 pounds per passenger per seat.
Okay.
36 seats times 68 gives you roughly 2.5 ton of sand. But one neat feature I'd like to show you on this bus, we got lots of service animals coming onto the bus. You know the dogs?
Yes.
And they mentioned that, so if I sit in one of these seats and my dog's here, there's a risk that my dog gets kicked, it gets hit by strollers, people with shopping bags. So we came up with this seat here. And this is a single flip. And now the person with the dog gets to sit there, the dog's protected, and the person sits here.
I love that. What a great tour of Alexander Keith's Brewery, right here in Nova Scotia. Former 3-time mayor turned brewmeister, now turned part of the history of this storied city. Cheers. High atop the hill overlooking Halifax is the historic Citadel Fort that is designed now to show what life was like for British troops who lived here in the year 1869, when the new nation of Canada was only 2 years old. You can be part of the action, from exploring the fort's ramparts, tunnels, and armaments, to watching the changing of the guard, to joining in the defense of the city.
So the Citadel that we're currently standing in is the 4th Citadel, and even though all 4 Citadels since 1749 have had very different structures and iterations, they all had the same purpose, and that was to defend the British naval base that they constructed here in Halifax. There were only 4 British naval bases across the North Atlantic, so if even just one of them went down, that's a whole quadrant that's not protected. So the Citadel was designed to protect from any land-based attacks. So all the way in the west, that's what our front was. All the other forts throughout the city were designed to protect against naval attacks, but if you were coming by land, the Citadel was the main line of defense.
This North Atlantic port city is an amazing city that has a great public transit system. We've taken you behind the scenes, showing you their electric buses and also the ferry system, which is going all electric. And we've taken you behind the scenes and shown you the food, the culture, places like the Citadel, which is an amazing historic site you've got to see if you ever come here. Halifax is a city of adventure.